The Miami Dolphins blow a 17-0 lead. They fall to 1-4. The season is in shambles, and we're going to talk about it.
You're listening to the DolphinsTalk.com podcast network.
Hello, Miami Dolphin fans, and welcome to another episode of the Same Old Dolphins Show. This is Aaron the Brain, and I am driving the ship. And with me today, not my mother from the exact same mother, but my brother from the old days in Chapel Trail in Pembroke Pines, Florida. It's David Bearman. David, say hello to the people.
Yeah, that didn't rhyme as well as the brother from another mother, but I got what you were doing there. Yes, from the old Chapel Trail, Rose Price Park area. We lived about a block and a half from each other growing up. The good old days when the Dolphins were winning 10 games every single season.
Absolutely. I'm still workshopping your intro here. It's only the second time that I've hosted a show where you're on as my co-host, so I'm still workshopping it. But thank you for joining me. Josh wishes that he could be here, but he can't join live today because he is doing colonoscopy prep. We thought it might be a disaster if he tried to do this show live, but he did record a pulse check, and we're going to give our words for our pulse check. And so if you're watching, no matter how you're watching, if you're watching live on YouTube, what's up YouTube? Make sure you smash that like button, subscribe, tell all your friends about it, help grow the show. If you're also watching on the I Am a Miami Dolphins Fan Facebook page, big ups to you, and good stuff on there on that community. So we always appreciate all of you joining wherever you're joining us from. This show, obviously part of the Dolphins Talk YouTube channel, part of the great DolphinsTalk.com podcast network, DolphinsTalk.com, your one-stop shop for all Miami Dolphins, all things Miami Dolphins, and also proudly brought to you by our friends at Caneswear. You can go to their flagship spot there on University Drive if you're local to South Florida, but you can also go to caneswear.com and get all things South Florida sports apparel. I don't know that you're running out to buy Dolphin stuff, but maybe you are, and they've still got a ton of Dolphin stuff available. Lots of Canes stuff. Canes ranked number 2 in the country. David, you're wearing your Florida Panthers Stanley Cup champions hat. I'm sure you can get something like that at Caneswear. No matter where you are, you want to buy apparel for your favorite South Florida sports teams, make sure that you do your shopping at caneswear.com. That's caneswear.com. So, David, thank you again for joining me. Have you ever had a colonoscopy before?
What I thought we were going to talk about tonight, it actually is a good segue to what we saw on the field with the Dolphins. So I think it does. Listen, I went through the whole process about 6 months ago, so I feel for Josh. Josh, good luck. Best of luck. Tonight is much worse than tomorrow, so good luck with that. But maybe that's the answer we've been looking for. Maybe what Josh is about to go do over the next couple of hours will flush the badness away.
We are going to get into what we need to do, but that is an excellent analogy. And Look, I have not yet gotten a colonoscopy. I guess about 4.5 years away from doing that. But my question to you, I mean, I've heard a lot of people say, the night before, that's the worst part. The actual procedure is a breeze. But what's worse, the night before the colonoscopy or watching the Dolphins on Sunday?
Usually I'm well prepared for any question that's going to come my way, but this might be one of the toughest questions. I would say watching the Dolphins is worse than the colonoscopy prep. Because colonoscopy prep, you know what you're getting yourself into. It says it right there on the bottle. You know what's coming, and you're not optimistic. You're not going into it thinking that this is going to be an awesome experience. I'm going to get a lot out of this. This is going to be fruitful for me. I'm going to be excited when I'm done. Josh knows what he's going through right now, and he knows what's coming, and he knows it's going to be awful, and he's just accepted fate because that's what you got to do to get through this. For us dumb Dolphin fans who have been optimistic for the last 40 plus years, we sit there yesterday and Aaron, like I went to the annual apple harvest parade here in Southington. It's a big, huge, like weekend carnival, yada, yada, yada. Brought my phone with me and I got a ticket and DirecTV or DirecTV on YouTube TV. So I'm legitimately got the earpiece in my ear purposely on the side that my wife is walking so I can't hear anything she's saying and watching it. And then the parade was coming. My daughter was in it. We had about an hour to wait on a street corner while the parade was coming. I was watching the first quarter. And when it was time to get ready for the parade, I'm still watching it, but you gotta put your phone away. But it's 17-0. And I showed my son, and my son's like, oh, wow, they beat the Jets last week. They're up 17-0. Like, optimism. It's here. And we're going to spend the next 45 minutes discussing what happened afterwards. But you don't prepare yourself like that, like you would prepare yourself for the colonoscopy. So no part of what Josh is about to do and what I went through 6 months ago had any sort of 17-0 feel. End result the same. But at no point during my colonoscopy prep was I excited like I was at 17-0.
Well, and here's the thing is that you get out of, I mean, look, again, I'm not speaking from a place of experience, but I imagine that you get out of that and you're done with it and you feel great that you got through it. And you're just like, all right, well, that's done. And you feel, I imagine you feel like a weight has been lifted. And
it has.
Well, literally, but that's not how we feel right now. We don't feel like a weight has been lifted. We feel like just so dragged down from the same thing with this football team that we've seen year after year and week after week. And I would say that now we probably are not going into any game the rest of this season thinking anything other than, yeah, we're getting ready for a colonoscopy.
It's a colonoscopy on repeat.
Yeah, it's like an endless colonoscopy. That's what it has been like watching the Miami Dolphins for the past quarter of a century.
It is.
So I want to talk. We're going to talk about the game, and we're going to get in our pulse check. And a reminder to anybody watching, whether you're on YouTube or Facebook, get your comments in if you want us to read your one word that describes how you're feeling about the Miami Dolphins after that game. And we'll read it live on the air when we do the pulse checks segment later on. But look, this game started out as well as it could have started out. The Dolphins jump out to a 17-0 lead. They're moving the ball on offense. They're getting turnovers on defense. Darren Waller's got 2 touchdowns. He's shaking his ass in the end zone. It's a party. And then everything changes. The Panthers realize that the Dolphins can't stop the run. And they're driving down the field. They're scoring points. The Dolphins offense all of a sudden can't put a drive together. And the Panthers are hanging around in the game and chipping away. And pretty soon we find ourselves behind 20-17. And then when it seems like everything is falling apart, Tua Tagovailoa hits Jalen Waddle for about a 50-yard touchdown pass, and it feels like for a moment that everything is right in the world. The Dolphins are going to find a way to pull this out, and they proceed to let Carolina drive all the way down the field, predominantly on the ground again, to score the go-ahead touchdown. Dolphins get the ball back. Tua misses badly on a throw to Jalen Waddle. They end up punting the ball with with a minute left in the game. This is the decision that I think, for all the people that think that Mike McDaniel coached a pretty solid game or whatever, this is the call that's being scrutinized. They punt the ball with a minute left. Carolina gets the ball back, and Miami predictably does not see another possession, and this game ends with Carolina winning 27-24. So obviously there's a lot there to unpack, but where I want to start is, what was it about the start of the game? Is there anything that the Dolphins did early in this game at the beginning that they can hang their hat on and say, we just need to get back to the drawing board, figure that out, and then we can take that and that can be something to build off for the rest of the season?
I'm going to answer that question by also hitting on something you said a minute ago. I would love for the people who think Coach McDaniel coached a good game yesterday, except for that decision to punt, to explain themselves, because you asked me what you can hang your hat on. And listen, do you want to give credit because the Dolphins moved the ball in their first 3 possessions? Sure. That's better than what they've done in the past. I'm now in coaching. I'm one of the coaches on my kids' youth team, 6th grade team. Obviously, this is not the NFL, but I've been doing it for many years now. And the older they get, the more we have film sessions and the more we talk with the kids and we go over tape and we circle things on film and we adjust. And the more we do this, the more like I'm at the games and we have a game plan and then we make adjustments based on what the other team didn't show us on film. That's coaching 101. You watch film, you come up with a game plan, and then you make adjustments. And where this coaching staff, especially Mike McDaniel, falls woefully short is in making the adjustments to the adjustments. And listen, you want to give them credit for those first 3 drives? Great. Every coach in the National Football League can script their first drive. Dolphins went right down the field and kicked the field goal. They didn't get the ball back on a turnover. They went right down the field and score. Ball back on a turnover, right down the field and score. Almost every team should be able to do that. That's what the scripted plays are. There was even a game the Gators played over the weekend versus Texas where they went right down the field and scored, and everyone's like, holy crap, this team has changed after the bye week. And I said, hold on. Anybody can run the scripted plays. You've watched tape all week. You've come up with your 10 to 12 plays you're going to do on the first drive, first 2 drives based on that. Then the other side is going to make adjustments. And it's just been a pandemic that Mike McDaniel has had and the predecessors before him have had, but nobody has shown it more than McDaniel, is the inability to adjust to the adjustments. You've seen it time and time again. Dolphins have been one of the worst third quarter teams in the entire 4 seasons under McDaniel. The coaches have 20 minutes at halftime to make adjustments. They did make adjustments. They decided they were going to stack the middle and not let Darren Waller beat them over the middle, not let the Dolphins run up the middle. There was no adjustment to that. Even being asked in the press conference, like, well, we decided we couldn't do the middle anymore, so we dinked and dunked. That's not an answer. This isn't 6th grade football to dink and dunk. Like my own game that I was at yesterday morning, they stacked the middle. So we started moving people around. We shifted things. We went in motion and we beat them. This guy is supposed to be an offensive genius, and he's not making the adjustment to the adjustment. And you know what that's called, Aaron? It's called getting out-coached. He's getting out-coached week in and week out over and over and over again. Listen, we gave him every excuse in the world. He looked first year, Tua got hurt. Second year, they scored 70 points in the game. The offense is fantastic. Daniel, my brother, and I talked about this on Dolphins Talk yesterday. Ever since teams started putting the 2 high safeties in there and said, you're not beating us deep anymore. Enough. He's not been able to adjust. It's turned into a dink and dunk offense. You get a tight end like Darren Waller, and last year, their tight end who led the team in receiving yards, and then teams are stopping the tight end. You just allowed the Carolina Panthers to outcoach you. So what am I holding my hat on? I'm going to hold my hat on that Tua Tagovailoa didn't throw an interception. That's what I'm going to hold my hat on. He had, for the most part, an efficient game. Now, did he drive the team down the field when they needed to? One time. The next time he didn't. They had 5 3-and-outs in a row. He had a decent game. Devon Achane had a good game out of the backfield as a wide receiver. Jalen Waddle had a great game being the wide receiver one that we need him to be with Tyreek Hill gone. Game plan wise, this team is never going to go anywhere unless they adjust to the adjustments, and Mike McDaniel just simply cannot do that. For his answer to be, they clogged the middle, so we needed to dink and dunk. Make an adjustment, change something.
Yeah, and I don't disagree with your larger point of Mike McDaniel struggling to make adjustments. I do think he's handcuffed. I think he's handcuffed not just by Tyreek Hill being injured, but he's handcuffed by his quarterback. Because the fact is that unless they're getting man coverage without a safety over the top of Jalen Waddle, the ball's not going deep. And Tua isn't fitting it into small windows deep. He can fit it into small windows, within 10, 12 yards from the line of scrimmage. And that's his quote unquote superpower, which, by the way, can we stop with this? I've watched enough football games of every other team in the league where the analysts don't bend over backwards to say this is the quarterback's superpower, but when you're watching the Dolphins, the analyst is bending over backwards to say this is Tua Tagovailoa's superpower because they're trying to make a case for Tua Tagovailoa being an elite quarterback and being worth his contract. Nobody's buying it. The quarterback does not have a superpower. Are there things that he does well? Sure. He can get the ball out quick. He can throw with some anticipation to his first read in a tight window. He's very accurate. It's fine. He's good. It's not a superpower. He's not a superpower quarterback. And that is the problem, is that right now, especially without Tyreek Hill, the offense is operating predominantly in about a 15-yard box. And certainly if there's a breakdown in coverage, or like you saw early in the game where the linebacker did not get depth and you had a linebacker and a defensive back basically just letting Darren Waller run right by them down the seam, and that was wide open, and Tua saw it and he delivered it on the money. Can he do that? Yes, he can do that. You know who else can do that? Every single quarterback in the National Football League can make that throw. There's no superpower about it. But when defenses play sound defense, sound coverage, they shore up things downfield. What you're left with is tight windows. And right now, Tua either doesn't have the confidence to get the ball, because I'm not watching the all 22, and I'm not telling you that there wasn't a guy 20 yards down the field that if Tua saw it, with anticipation, he could have made that throw. Maybe he could have. Maybe he could not have. But what I'm telling you is he's either throwing a very quick 10-yard in to the designed receiver that the play is schemed for, or he's checking down to a swing pass in the flat. And that's the Dolphins offense. And the remedy to that ultimately is you got to be able to run the ball. And the Dolphins couldn't run the ball. Predictably, they struggled to run the ball between the tackles against Carolina. When we sat here and did the show, when I did the show with Josh on Thursday, and we did our breakdown of this game, we did say, look, there's a little bit of an element of unknown without Tyreek Hill out there, and that could give the Dolphins an advantage early on in this game because Carolina doesn't know what Miami's going to do. But if Miami's not able to consistently find a way to run the ball, and it might not be up the middle, but if they're not able to consistently manufacture rushing yards, it's going to be a problem. And what happened in this game was that it was like a perfect storm of bad things for the Carolina Panthers. Not only were the Dolphins moving the ball, but Carolina was also turning the ball over left and right to start the game. And so they found themselves down 17-0. But the second Carolina figured out that Miami couldn't run the ball against a light box and that they needed to clog the middle on Darren Waller, all of a sudden the entire Dolphins passing game was Jalen Waddle and swing passes out of the backfield. And
so you bring up the point about not being able to run the ball. And listen, it's not like they went up against the 85 Bears here. Carolina entered 20th in the NFL against the run. It's not like they're the Tampa Bay Buccaneers or the Cleveland Browns rush defense. So the question I throw back to you is, why can't the Dolphins run against the Carolina Panthers? Again, you're up 17 to
interior
nothing.
offensive line. It doesn't matter. The interior offensive line was completely dominated by the Panthers' interior defensive line. It's not the tackles, but if you cannot block on the interior, and look, Aaron Brewer generally has done a really good job in this scheme, getting to the second level, playing with leverage, and being the perfect zone blocking center. But he's also an undersized center, and he's got his hands full with Derek Brown. Any undersized center, honestly, every center in the league has their hands full with Derek Brown. But the two guards, whether it's Savanea, whether it's Cole Strange, whether it was Keon Smith before him, it's the same issue that we had last year, which is our guards suck. They're getting dominated, and that's going to make it very difficult for you to run with any sort of consistency between the tackles. So, look, at the end of the day, I can't fault them for not sticking with the run. They tried to run when they had a 17-0 lead, but they ran the ball 14 times for 19 yards. At a certain point, you're just banging your head against the wall.
And it is stunning to me that a team with a 17-0 lead ran the ball 14 times. And it wasn't like they led 17-0 the whole game, but they had the lead until 6 minutes left in the game. So for 54 minutes, you led this game and you had 14 runs. Meanwhile, the other team is down 17-0. And I even made a comment to a friend of mine that I had Rico. I'm like, well, this is not a very good game script when your running back is down 17-0. And in 98% of the cases, that's not a good game script. The guy runs for 209 yards down 17-0, because you know what he had when they were down 17-0? He had 5. So the Dolphins gave up to one running back 204 yards to a team that was down 17-0. That is sticking with the run, sticking with your game plan, adjusting to what the Dolphins are giving you, adjusting your game plan, and saying, hey, we're going to do what we want to do. This team ran the ball right down the Dolphins' throat, down 17-0. There's no bigger indictment to that defense and to what the Dolphins couldn't do on offense. Aaron, we're talking about the Carolina Panthers here. We're not talking about the Buffalo Bills. We're not talking about the Tampa Bay Bucks. We're not talking about the Kansas City Chiefs that are playing right now. We're talking about the 1-3 Carolina Panthers, who got steamrolled by the Patriots the week before.
Yeah.
The team that we are allegedly in 2025 being compared to, because the books had them both at about 7.5, 8 wins. The books had both teams with the same chances to win the division, the wild card, the Super Bowl. We entered the season on the same level as New England Patriots. We lost in the closing seconds to the New England Patriots. New England Patriots steamrolled this Carolina Panthers team. And we did not.
Look, they've got to find ways to run the ball, and you got to be committed to the run. But there's a lot to be angry about in regards to Mike McDaniel. It's just nobody's going to criticize the first 3 drives that end in points that have you ahead 7-0, right? We're not going to criticize that. But here's it's the good thing about them going 3 and out a bunch of times in a row is it makes for very, very quick analysis. It makes it very easy to recap. The Dolphins' next possession, 3 plays, -5 yards. They throw a 4-yard pass on first down. 2nd and 6, they run it to Devon Achane for 1 yard. 3rd down, Tua gets sacked. Them not running the ball, it's not a reason why that didn't work. Their next possession after Carolina, after Carolina had then made it 17-10 to stop to end the first half, and then made it 17-13 with their first drive in the third quarter. The Dolphins finally get a drive in the third quarter. First play, they run the ball. Ollie Gordon, -3 yards. Next play, Tua throws the ball. They get a gain, but now you have a 10-yard holding penalty. Now it's 2nd and 23. You're behind the sticks. They end up not getting a first down.
Do you know what the pass run breakdown was when they were up 17-0? Take a wild guess. Pass run breakdown. You're up 17-0. What was it?
I don't know.
22-8 passing.
Okay.
Tua had
you're talking about after they were up 17-0 or
to get up 17-0.
So that's my point. So you can't say, like, you could say whatever you want to criticize Mike McDaniel. I'm not going to sit here and defend Mike McDaniel for an hour on a show, but like, they got up 17-0, throwing the ball 22 times and running the ball 8 times. Then you can't say, well, they lost the game because they didn't commit to the run once they were up 17-0. The issue is that Carolina figured out what they were doing. They figured out how to stop them. And then the bigger issue was that the defense could not stop anything. And they could not stop the Panthers from running the ball. And, that was ultimately what cost them the game. And then the fact that, they get an opportunity, even after they had taken the lead and given the lead back, they get an opportunity to put a drive together that could potentially win the game. And Tua doesn't make the throw. He misses high because he throws off of his back foot on a throw where he doesn't need to throw off his back foot. He just does. And then the ball sails on him. That ends up being the deciding play. And Tua, like you said, Tua had a pretty good game. It's not like Tua had a bad game. In fact, Tua's numbers could be even better in this game because his receivers really did not help him out. He had a couple of really bad drops in the first half of this game. But Tua generally played well. The problem is, and this has been a problem consistently now, is that when the game is at its biggest, he comes up short. And it's just a data point. It's not, I'm making a grand sweeping conclusion off of one game, but it's been 4+ years now, or 5+ years now. We're in his 6th season. We're 4 games into the season, and we have enough of a sample size of these moments and these situations against a team, like you said, in the Carolina Panthers. I don't care that you can't run the ball. It would be nice if you could run the ball, but franchise quarterbacks, when their team can't run the ball and the game is on the line, they take the team on their shoulders and they make it happen with their arm. And Tua, for whatever reason, we know he's capable. We know he could put together touchdown drives, but for whatever reason, when the game is on the line, he's just consistently not coming up the way that you want your franchise quarterback to come up. And that is definitively part of the problem. He's part of the problem. Mike McDaniel's part of the problem. The construction of the entire team, which goes to your GM and Chris Greer, is probably the biggest part of the problem, but they are all interconnected and they are all part of the problem, and they are all the part of the reason why the Dolphins lost this football game and why the Dolphins are 1-4. And so I want to get into our pulse check, but first we've got to have a word from our sponsors at MyBookie. Your fantasy league pays bragging rights. MyBookie, they pay cash. You've done the research. You've got the gut picks. Now it's time to cash. Saturday, it's college chaos. Chaos, not chaos. Saturday, it's college chaos. Sunday, it's NFL insanity. And with MyBookie, you've got every angle covered. Spreads, player props, live bets, and the ones you only whisper about until they hit. The setup's seamless. One account, one wallet, bet your game, play some blackjack, and reload without ever leaving the app. And if you're new to MyBookie, well, this is the best deal of all. Use our promo code Dolphins at mybookie.com, and any bet you choose up to $500 is fully covered. Make your play, and if it doesn't hit, you get it right back when you opt in using your bet back bonus token. This isn't fantasy. This is the real season. Let's cash with MyBookie. David, did you have any bets on this game? I know you're a betting guy, founder of Betting with Bearman, which you can find at bearmanbets.com.
Yes. Thank you for that plug, BearmanBets.com, or listen to the podcast, Betting with Bearman, on the Believe Podcast Network. We have it every single Wednesday. We got a nice special guest coming this Wednesday as well. I did have a bet on this game. They call me the Undertaker for a reason. I like taking unders. I especially like taking unders with two bad offenses. I had two bad offenses in Carolina and the Dolphins, and my read on the game was right where I thought it would be. Even in their best game of the season, Carolina scored 30 against Atlanta on 240 yards. It was more about how bad Atlanta was than what Carolina did. Carolina entered with 26th or worst in all offensive categories, including running, by the way. That tells you about the Dolphin defense. And even though the Dolphin defense is bad, they play a ball control type offense with short throws and dump offs and runs. And yeah, it was 17-0, but they also drained the entire first half. And going into the fourth quarter, you had a game that was way under the total. And the only way that it would not go under is if we had touchdown. And what did we have? We had touchdown Panthers, touchdown Dolphins, touchdown Panthers, and bye-bye under. 3 touchdowns in the span of about 3 minutes, and we lost the under. But yeah, that's what I had. But the read was right, and you just got to keep with the process, and you don't win all of the bets. You don't win more than 55% of the bets, but as long as you trust the process, it'll come out the right way.
There you go. Trust the process. So we're going to do our pulse checks segment here, and this is going to be David's maiden voyage with the pulse check. For those of you who haven't seen or heard of the pulse check segment before, I'm asking for your one word to describe how you feel about the Miami Dolphins right now. Just one word. If you're watching live on YouTube or on Facebook, put it in the comments. Let us know in the chat. I'll read it on the air. We've got a few on the Discord. Before we get to those, and Josh also recorded his own pulse check segment that I'm going to play for you.
I'm going to take the over on his time.
All right, we're setting the over at 1 minute and 53 seconds. David says he's taken the over. I have not done any homework.
To go to the bathroom while Josh is talking.
I have not done any homework on the length of Josh's video. So get your over, your under in there. But David, you're the guest here, so I'm going to let you go first. Your maiden voyage. How you feeling?
Is this podcast? What's the rating of this podcast? Is it G? Is it X? Is it NC-17? Is it R? Like what is the rating before I give you my word?
I would say this is rated R. So feel free to let an F-bomb fly or two, but nothing overly vulgar.
Yeah, but your old neighbor, my mom, she's listening. So as far as she's concerned, I've never cursed in my life. So we'll go with the word enough. And Josh and Aaron has left the program. So I'm now talking on DolphinsTalk.com all by myself. Aaron, come back in. There you go.
I'm here. I was just giving you giving you the forum.
Okay.
You said enough. Okay. Tell us more about why that's your word.
I wore this hat on purpose, by the way, and it describes the word that I have. The pulse check is why I wore this hat. Enough. I've absolutely had enough with this franchise, with this coach, with this GM, and I'm getting there with the quarterback. Enough is enough. They're not doing the right things. They're not showing the effort. They're not making game plans right. They're not doing the right things. The hat I'm wearing represents the two-time defending Stanley Cup champion Florida Panthers who take the ice tomorrow night. A franchise who knows how to make trades, how to get enough out of their players, how to coach, how to adjust, how to game plan. Completely different sport, well aware. One of the best-run franchises in sports, while the Dolphins continue to run in quicksand, which would have been my other word, by the way, for the last 25 years. In 2023, we thought we had something good. We were optimistic about this coach. We were optimistic about the quarterback. They scored 70 points in the game. They were 9-3. They went to Baltimore with a chance at the 1 seed. They got their butts kicked. Went home for Buffalo. Home, if you beat Buffalo, you win the division, host home playoff game, lost on national TV. They were up a touchdown going into the fourth quarter and gave it up. 2024 was a disaster. Tua got hurt. They lost the games they shouldn't have lost. 2005 is here. You had an entire offseason to plan for the Indianapolis Colts, who were literally breaking in a new quarterback, a quarterback that everybody gave up on, and they got steamrolled, they did just smashed. Enough is enough, Aaron. That is my word. Enough. I can't take any more. It's to the point 40 years later where I sat here in this very chair with the Sunday ticket on, and I was actively rooting for Baker Mayfield and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers because they're exciting, they're fun, they make the right moves, they've won something in the last quarter century. Listen, I'm not a Bucs fan. I'm a Miami Dolphins fan until I die. But I was sat there and I was actively rooting for another team, of which the only action I had was Mayfield over 1.5 touchdowns. I gave it out on bearmanbets.com, and it hit. But they're an exciting team. There is nothing exciting about the Miami Dolphins now or in the future. The word is enough. Enough. Get rid of everybody. Enough.
David, are you a fan of wrestling, or were you ever a fan of professional wrestling?
I did get a hug from Elizabeth when I was 10 years old at the Miami Arena.
I think it was a great word and a great segment for you. What it reminded me of is the late, great Owen Hart, who famously would come out to his opening theme, on the Jumbotron, and it would start with, "Enough is enough, and it's time for a change."
Enough. I've had it.
Enough.
I've had it. I am too old for this garbage. It's been years and years and years. Listen, we grew up with Marino and Shula. We were spoiled. I have an 11-year-old who I'm trying to have him fall in love with this team. I've taken him to the Meadowlands twice. I've taken him home to Hard Rock Stadium twice. The kid's 4-0 in Dolphin games. He thinks this team's the greatest thing in the world. Enough. Do something. Make me want to say. You know what enough is? For the first time in the 40 years I've been watching this team, they beat the Jets on Monday night, and I didn't even go to bed happy. I was like, they played like shit. Sorry, Mom, I cursed. Like, they beat the Jets. Big deal. They didn't even look good in doing so. The week earlier, they stayed in the game versus Buffalo. Yay. I can't even enjoy the wins anymore. That's how aggravating this team is. Enough.
Yeah. So if you took the over on David's rant, you definitely cashed in on that. Let's see what Josh had to say. Let's see what Josh's one word was for the pulse check.
What's up, Miami Dolphin fans? It's Josh here. Sorry I couldn't be with you live on the show tonight, but I wanted to make sure that I could tune in with my pulse check for the week. And here's my pulse check. I'm done. I'm done with Mike McDaniel. I'm done with Chris Greer. I'm done with Tua Tagovailoa. I'm done with this build, this iteration of the football team. It is not competitive. It is not good enough. It's been clear for a long time. And if it wasn't clear, it should be now. This team, this build of the team, with whoever the actual captain of the ship is, whether it's Mike McDaniel or Chris Greer or Steve Ross himself, I'm done with all of them. Fire Mike McDaniel, fire Chris Greer, Steve Ross, sell the team. Let's move on to somebody else and let's start it over. The goal for the season was always to evaluate the young talent that was on this team that was going to be part of the next great Miami Dolphins build. And unfortunately, I don't think we're anywhere near. I thought maybe there might be a handful of guys that you'd be able to start with this next time around. And right now, I don't even think you've got that, because right now you look at Kenneth Grant and Jonas Avayanaya, and you look at what they've. Granted, it's only 5 games for them, long way to go. But thus far, it's like, I don't know. Certainly doesn't seem like it was worth it to trade up for Jonah, based on, well, look at what we've seen so far. So anyway, my pulse check, done.
There you have it. You and Josh almost with the same word. I mean, same sentiment, same energy behind it.
I can't say done because I'd be lying. I'd be lying to you. I'd be lying to all of Dolphins Nation. I'd be lying to myself, and I'd be lying to my family. I'd love to be done. literally, like, I actually enjoyed myself yesterday at the apple harvest. And then I literally sprinted home. Thank God it was hot out. My kids did not want to go to the carnival because it was too hot. We raced home so I could watch the fourth quarter. The hell am I putting myself through that? I'd rather go back on the freaking teacups. And, the teacups is like get kicked in the balls repeatedly. You want to vomit. That's what I watched on TV. I literally sprinted home to watch the fourth quarter yesterday. I wish I could be done. Then I could have enjoyed the carnival.
Yeah, my wife wishes I'd be done. I'm going to give you my word, but before I give you my word, I'm going to read the words from the fans. We got a few on the Discord. John on the Discord says, suck. Al Craig 23 says, terrible. Martini Jack with an interesting one says, Harbaugh. And that's interesting because I didn't quite put 2 and 2 together, but with the way the Ravens season is kind of falling off the rail, is John Harbaugh's job in jeopardy? If so, is that potentially a person that we could end up seeing? I mean, that would be a no-brainer. Like, if John Harbaugh ends up on the market, you blew your first chance at a Harbaugh. Don't blow your second one. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. It's a good one from Martini Jack. In the chat, for people watching live, David says hostage. He also said flatlined. I'm going to give him 2. Anthony Palea says trash. Mark Heath says cursed. Brian Decker says exhausted. Oh, we're
I want to give Anthony a shout out for what he just commented. The team is worse than a 1-15 team. It definitely is exponentially more aggravating.
Muscle Morph says sucks. Victor Spotlow says inept. Andrew Taggart says trash. Javier Alvarez says hopeless. Phyllis P. Nickerson says disappointed. And Joe DiCiccio says atrocious. Or actually, he says atrocious? As if he was asking. Does that count? Definitively, yes, that counts. Here's where I'm at. 2 weeks ago, I told you that it wasn't my word. My word wasn't done. My word was fire. I was ready to fire everybody. Fire McDaniel, fire Greer, have a fire sale. And then the Dolphins went out and beat the Jets, who may be the worst team in the league this year. And they did it in spite of not really playing a great game, but the Jets just absolutely throwing up all over themselves. And that was met by a fairly large section of the Miami Dolphins fan base on social media, basically shouting at all the people who said that we need to fire everybody because the Dolphins just beat the Jets and that this season isn't over and that that these people aren't real fans and they need to stop overreacting. Well, now you're 1-4 and you just lost to the Panthers. You know how I feel? I feel vindicated. Because at the end of the day, anybody with a brain, I mean, honestly, I'm disappointed in myself that I even thought the team was going to be mediocre. I thought the team was going to win 8 games this season because I thought, look, that's what this Dolphins team does. When you think they're going to be great, they end up mediocre. When you think they're going to be terrible, they end up mediocre. And I thought if there's one thing that this team can do, it's they're going to find their way to mediocrity, even if you don't think that they're quite yet there. And they'll find a way to win 8 games, even if it's not the best thing that could possibly happen for the franchise. But I'm embarrassed that I even thought that they were that good. Because this team is one of the worst teams in the league. And it's over. Like, it's not going to get any better. People that are like, well, they could pull off and up. Look, the Chargers have lost 2 games in a row. We could beat the Chargers. Oh, the Falcons, Michael Penix sucks. He's no good. We could beat the Falcons. We could turn this season around. There is no turning this season around. And the faster we all realize that, the faster we can move on from this regime. And we can fire Mike McDaniel, and we can fire Chris Greer, and we can start trading off pieces. And I know that I've given a similar preach to this just a few weeks ago, but I think it bears being repeated. The season is over. They are not going to fix this in any meaningful way that is going to make a difference for the 2025-2026 Miami Dolphins season. They are not going to fix this in any meaningful way that will give you hope going into the 2026 season if massive changes are not made to the coach and the GM. It is time to pull the plug, accept defeat, accept failure, and begin the process of moving on. Because the longer you delay that process, the longer you end up mired in mediocrity or worse, which is where this franchise currently sits. And it's not just about the owner, Stephen Ross, needing to make those decisions, because if there's anything that we've seen from Stephen Ross over the past couple of years, is that he does not want to make these decisions. And that means that us as the fans need to flex our strength. And we need to make this decision for Stephen Ross. And how do we do that? We do that by not saying, oh, that's okay, we'll go out there next Sunday and we'll beat the Chargers. No, we do that by saying, I'm not spending money on this crap anymore. I'm not going to the game on Sunday. If you already bought tickets and you got a vacation out of it and you got plans, whatever, the tickets are already bought. But you can't be going out there and buying tickets to this garbage right now. You can't be supporting this. We need to boycott this product. We need, when it's Sunday at 1:00 and the cameras pan that field at, 1:15, because I know, like, they'll pan, they'll show you the aerial view at like 1:01, and in the stadium always looks half empty because, Dolphin fans are typically late getting to their seats, and parking is a nightmare down there, and not to mention the long concession lines. But when they show it at like the beginning of the second quarter, I still want that stadium to be empty. I want Stephen Ross to know that nobody is showing up for this bullshit anymore, and nobody is going to show up until major changes are made. So it is time to pull the plug. It's a mercy killing at this point for Mike McDaniel. Look at this guy at the podium on the press. He doesn't want to be there answering questions about this team. He knows he's getting fired. He knows it's not getting better. Just put him out of his misery. Just fire him already. And do the same thing with Chris Grier, because I don't need Chris Grier making decisions on this team's future when he shouldn't be the one that's here for this team's future. Fire him, promote whoever you want as the acting interim general manager, and let them start building their resume by putting trades out there. It is time to pull the plug. And anybody that said that it wasn't 1 week ago, you were wrong, and I'm vindicated.
I love it. And we must be missing something. And listen, people have been saying it for years, don't show up. Stephen Ross, the guy's worth billions. Whether you have 20,000 in the stands or 60,000 in the stands, it's like 5 cents in your pocket. It's not going to matter to him. And the minute the Dolphins start winning again, they'll all come back anyway. So it must be the best job in the world to be the owner of a pro sports franchise, knowing you're going to make money no matter what it is. We must be missing something. And listen, Aaron, I ignore 3/4 of the things people say in social media as a fan because they don't know what's going on inside that building. And you have to give the benefit of the doubt at some point that the owner and the coach know more than you do. I've been in the buildings. I've worked for these teams. I've been in the trenches with them. I've studied the film. I've watched the All 22. Like, I don't understand if Stephen Ross is watching this. This is his product. People started calling for McDaniel's head after they lost 3 in a row in 2023 and blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, you know what? Like, he had a good season. They scored 70 points. I don't blame Ross for wanting to come back, give him an extension, all that. 2024, you lost Tua for a bunch of games during the year. They had that big losing streak because they lost him. They're not going to fire McDaniel when you don't get a full season out of Tua, because when he come back, they started winning again and they almost make the playoffs. Give him another chance. Now in 2025, I am out of excuses for them. What is Stephen Ross watching that we are not? And everybody keeps throwing the quote up there that he did on January 1 last year after he said he's coming back. And, it's about progression. It's not about blah, 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 blah. And I know it comes out every week and they just change the name and the thing and the team and they send it out again. I would literally like to know what he is watching. Because, again, a lot of what the fans say, listen, you're not in the office. You don't know as much football as you think you do, whatever. What is he seeing that we're not? Because I watched Mike McDaniel make that walk yesterday from the field to the press conference. He's a beaten man. He was wholly unprepared for that game yesterday and admitted so at the press conference. So you are a business owner and your business looks like crap. You got to change it. And I have a different viewpoint as an executive of a company for a while, and now I'm running my own business. If you see something bad, you got to fix it. So what are you holding on to? It can't be loyalty. Like, this is a business. Your business is not going to get any better the way it is now. You got to make a difference. And we should have seen it coming. We should have seen it coming.
It's reputation. He's holding on to
what?
What he's holding on to is that he doesn't want, he wants to be the nice guy. He doesn't want to be the guy that's seen as firing people too quick. He mishandled the situation with, the first situation he had where he was, potentially firing a guy was back when we had Tony Sparano, and he knew that he wanted to fire Tony Sparano so much that he went out and he flew his helicopter down to all the way over to Palo Alto to meet with Jim Harbaugh to try to convince Jim Harbaugh to take the job before he had even fired Tony Sparano. And that he just mishandled that whole thing. And then he ended up with Tony Sparano on a lame duck season. And, we all know how that ended, how that ended up.
Then he mishandled Flores.
Yeah, well, I don't know that he necessarily mishandled Flores, although you could make the argument certainly in hindsight, and you could say, well, hey, if the issue was that Brian Flores and Chris Greer were not on the same page, what would it have looked like had he taken Flores' side? What would that have looked like? What if he would have fired Chris Greer and kept Brian Flores?
Yep.
Would that have looked differently? Maybe. But at the end of the day, he took the side of the GM and he fired Brian Flores after a winning season, after back-to-back winning seasons. And then he goes and he hires Mike McDaniel, and he doesn't want to fire him in the middle of the season. And I get the point. Well, the product is bad. You've got to fix it. I don't know that firing Mike McDaniel in the middle of the season is going to make the product better, but it's besides the point. It's beside the point. And it's the same thing with firing Chris Greer. You're not going to hire your new full-time GM in the middle of the season. So why fire Chris Greer in the middle of the season? The reason is you need to get your GM search going. You need to, that's number one. And number two, more importantly, you can't have the GM who's not going to be here at the end of the year making decisions for this team's future right now before the trade deadline. You have to pull the plug, because as long as Chris Greer's here, he's going to try to put lipstick on a pig as much as possible here to try to save his job. Because if the Dolphins could go out and find a way to win 6-7 games out of this, then they will have definitively had, because at this point and I don't think the Dolphins are winning 6 or 7 games. I don't think I'm not going to delude myself into thinking that's going to happen, but I'm speaking to the delusional bunch that thinks that there's still a chance for this team to win 6 or 7 games and actually thinks that would actually be a good result, even though it would be the worst possible thing to happen to this franchise.
Aaron, that's why it's going to happen. They're going to win 5. There's enough shitty teams on the schedule. They might win 5-6 games.
We are the shitty team on everybody's schedule.
And they might win 5 games.
We just found that out.
Yeah.
We are the shitty team on everybody's schedule. Like, might we win 5 games? Yeah, we might win 5 games. What I would be doing, I mean, I'd be telling Chris Grier, hey, look, I don't know if you're going to be the guy here next year, or I'd tell him, you want to keep your job? Fire sale. I wouldn't be promising Chris Grier a job next year. I would just fire him. And then if I was the G, and if I was Stephen Ross, I'd fire him and I'd tell that new GM, look, here's the thing. We're going to hire a new GM, a new full-time GM, but you're going to be the acting interim GM for the rest of the season. You have designs on being a GM at some point in the season, at some point in your career. This is an opportunity for you to get experience making deals with other GMs in this league and putting that on your resume. Minkah Fitzpatrick, clearly a really good player, still has some juice left in the tank. Is he going to be here by the time the Dolphins are good? Are you going to pay him a new contract? Are you going to, like, with all the needs that this team has, with all the rebuilding that they're going to have, are you going to be paying a close to 30-year-old safety a big contract? No, probably not. Minkah Fitzpatrick, you're getting traded. Bradley Chubb, you played ball for us this year. You've got this big salary cap number next year, but none of it's guaranteed. We're not going to pick that. We're not going to opt in and pay you next year. We're going to see what we can get for you. Bradley Chubb, you're gone. Devon Achane is going to be the controversial one. You're a great player. You're definitively the best player on our football team, and you're still on your rookie deal. But you're going to get a massive payday after this year. Do we want to pay big-time bucks to a undersized running back on a second contract when it's a luxury piece for a team that's probably 3 years away from any serious contention? Probably not. So Devon Achane, what can we get for you? Can we get a second-round pick for you? Can we get better than a second-round pick for you? Because you're such a dynamic offensive weapon and you're, showing out every single week. Fire sale. And when you do that, not only are you giving yourselves more draft capital, you're also securing that your team is going to be as bad as possible this year so you can get as high a draft pick as possible, because this team needs high leverage draft picks and they need to build it through the draft, and they need at least 2 monster drafts. And that starts with a fire sale this year. And it starts before even having a fire sale. It starts with acknowledging that this season is over, that this team and this build was a failure, and it's time to let it go. And once you come to that realization, then it's very easy to say, everybody's for sale.
The problem with the fire sale, first of all, it's a term you can't even use in the NFL. It's not Major League Baseball, where there's no salary cap and you can do whatever the hell you want. With a fire sale,
but you can use it. Like, I'm not saying you're dumping salary. What I'm saying
is the last time the Dolphins did this, they got in trouble. They tanked and they got in trouble for it. So I'm not saying not to do it. I'm just saying that.
Oh, well, they didn't get in trouble because they tanked. They got in trouble because the owner decided to meet Tom Brady on a boat while Tom Brady is still under contract.
And allegedly told Brian Flores to lose on purpose.
That's all right, that's stupidity, though. Nobody's telling Stephen Ross to go out there and tell whoever the coach is, Mike McDaniel or whoever interim coach, nobody's telling him to go out there and tell your coach stupidly, hey, I want you to lose. No, what you do is you tell your GM, this year's over, we need to rebuild for the future, trade pieces that are not part of the long-term future, which is virtually every piece on this team, and that's a fire sale. And you just do that's the problem, is that this team can't even fucking do a fire sale right. Because they can't even do a fire sale without the owner deciding to talk to the coach and say, I want you to lose games on purpose. That's never been how this is done. It's never been how it's done. It's never a coach purposely losing games or players throwing games. You'd have to go back to the Black Sox scandal in Major League Baseball to find evidence of anybody doing that. That's not how this is done. It's done organizationally, where you determine as an organization that you are not trying to win this year, that you are trying to win in the future. And so you are sacrificing immediate success for long-term future gains, for long-term future gains. Just like you said about betting. Just like the GM or the owner of the Philadelphia 76ers said all those years ago, trust the process.
We done?
I'm done. I'm done.
Sounded like we were done. I thought maybe you were...
I'm done. I'm like you. I'm done. I'm vindicated. Enough is enough. It's time for a change. And I think, do you have anything else to add?
No, I mean, I did this with my brother last night, and we spent another hour doing this today. And I wrote a piece for DolphinsTalk.com about the 5 worst losses of the McDaniel era. Make sure to go read that, where the Carolina Panthers loss fits in on that. And as I told my wife over dinner when I showed her the article, I said, I got all my frustrations out. Like, got it all out. I had a 24-minute bitch fest with Daniel yesterday on this show. Had an hour with you today. I wrote an article today. I actually put the stuff I needed to do aside. Hope Mike understands that, so I could write this article today. Enough. I mean, we were going to try to talk about what's next. It's not even worth looking at.
Yeah. What's next is they got to have it. What's next is the change has to come. The firings have to happen. The fire sale has to happen. And until it does, I'm going to be bitching about it. But, if nothing else, this for me, and as it usually is when the Dolphins lose, is this was cathartic. And that's how you described it. And, much like a colonoscopy, it feels finally like a weight has been lifted. And
it's
with
sad.
that,
it's sad. It's sad because this is, and I know a couple of guys wrote in the chat, like, this is, my son is 11, and this is the time you're exposing him to all this, and you want him to love the Dolphins, and he comes with me to games. I'm supposedly going on a bros road trip with Daniel to Pittsburgh to watch this debacle, and my son wants to go. And my mom called earlier today and asked if I'm coming home for the Thursday night Halloween Eve game against the Ravens that I'm scheduled to go to. And, you got to book a flight, make sure the kids are taken care of with the wife, go down there, deal with South Florida maniacs, and go to a game. And, in 2-3 days, I'm going to the Meadowlands to see the Giants and the Eagles. And, at least the Eagles are going to show me what a football team looks like.
Yeah. Look, Josh's son, I watched the Monday Night Football game at his house last week, and Josh's son watched like the first half of the game, first quarter or so of the game, and he didn't really care because he said to me before the game started, I'm a Bills fan. And I looked at him and I said, good for you.
Josh, take care of that. Josh, that's unacceptable.
No, look, the worst thing that any parent can do at this point is force this awful franchise onto their kid.
You know what's pathetic? You know what's really, really, really pathetic? I live up here in the New England area, and I'm surrounded by Giants, Jets, and Patriot fans in this area. Central Connecticut, it's to the north, it's Patriots, and to the south, it's Giants and Jets. And everybody around you is a Patriots, Giants, or Jets. And all the Patriot fans have gone into hibernation over the last 5 years until last night. So they've disappeared for the last 5 years. And so you're left with Giants and Jet fans who are just as dumb as we are, thinking their franchise has turned the corner. And it's just like, getting kicked in the balls over and over again. But it's the Giant fans who their team sucks, but they've won enough over the years. They feel like they can speak down to you. And everybody on the coaching staff that I work with are Giant fans. And I go to practice and they're laughing at me, and they're Giant fans and they're laughing at me. So that's like, the Giants are a bad franchise right now. Yes, they've won a couple of Super Bowls in recent time. Thank you for winning against the 19-0 Patriots. we're a laughing stock when the Giant fans laugh at you. And, oh, hey, guess what I found out last night and this morning? Patriots are back. Our national crisis is over. The budget deficit will disappear. The split with the left and right in the politics will disappear. Now that the Patriots are good again, our world will continue spinning on its axis up here in the Northeast. Maybe winter will only last 9 months instead of 10 months this year. It was painful last night. You root against the Bills because you hate the Bills, and you don't want to see anybody go undefeated. So pathetically, it's the only thing I got to root for nowadays is everybody to lose once. And I'm like, do I really want what Mike Tirico said to come true and the Patriots announce themselves back on the national scale? It's like, we spent 20 years dealing with this bullshit, and I lived here for it. And now they're back. Enough.
Right, well, enough. On that note, for David, for Josh, who will be back with me on Thursday as we, find the strength to preview another game as the Dolphins will take on the Chargers this Sunday. I am Aaron the Brain saying, take care of yourselves and each other. And as always,
I can't do it.
Go Dolphins!
Glad you didn't make me do it.
Boycott Hard Rock.